Gods and Monsters. The other band kids didn't like that we had skipped the concert, but that hardly sank in. Our ride back to school was pretty much a blur, all because of Dana's book. It bulged with bookmarks, sticky notes, highlighted passages, dog-eared pages, circled words, and hundreds of notes scrawled up and down the sides of nearly every page. Dana had practically written a whole other book in the margins. "This better be the right book," said John. "I'm not going back in that creepy house." "If we actually believe what we saw in that house," said Sydney, "and Dana really did vanish into the floor." "We do, and she did," I said. "Then this book may tell us where she went. Maybe even something about what you heard." "The battle begins," I said, shuddering. Sydney tapped our shoulders and whispered, "Guys, we'll be back at school before we know it, so we should read fast. Let's huddle." Sid might have seemed a bit snobby at first, but I had to admit that she wasn't so bad. We started poring over the stories Dana had marked. Some were about gods and goddesses, others were about heroes and monsters, and not just the usual Greek ones. Norse gods from Scandinavia, like Thor and Odin, Egyptian creatures like the phoenix and the sphinx, even some of the fables from later in history, like Beowulf and the Dragon Slayer. One name was circled on every page where it occurred: Hades, ruler of the ancient underworld. In the margin next to one passage, Dana had scribbled, "Beware Hades bargains." "I remember Hades from the story," said Sydney. "He's terrifying and strict. He has to be because he's the Greek king of the dead." "I like this guy Jason. He was cool," said John, tapping his finger on one page. "Getting an awesome team together for a big quest, like us forming a band." Then I read the story of Argus, a beast in charge of keeping people captive. He had 100 eyes. 100 eyes? I said, like what I saw under the floor of the school? But no, that's mythology. Argus is a monster, John pointed out, scanning the rest of the page. "You said Dana talked about monsters. The only way Argus could be stopped was with music, a lullaby." One story that may have been the most marked up was about the Greek hero Orpheus. Dana's squiggly marks ran up and down the page, in pencil, in pen, in marker. We could barely read the original text. Argus, Fenrir. This seems really big," I said. "She spent a lot of time here." "Orpheus was a musician whose wife died and went to Hades' underworld," said Sydney, reading over my shoulder. "He descended to the underworld to bring her back." "I've heard about that one," I said. Sydney continued. "Hades made a bargain with him. He could lead his wife to our world as long as he didn't look back to see if she was really following him." "Let me guess," John said. "He looked." Sydney nodded. Whoosh! Orpheus lost her forever. "Yeah, well, we're not losing Dana," I said loudly. "Not like that. And anyway, we don't know where she is. But she can't be in some creepy underworld, especially not one under our school." The kids on the bus quieted and turned to us. "Ha ha," said Sydney. "Nothing to see here." She ducked her head down and flipped to a pink sticky note in the section about Norse myths. "Lots of monsters here, too. The Midgard serpent, a scary half-blue lady, and uh-oh." "What?" I said. Sid went paler than usual. "Fenrir." "Somebody you know?" asked John. "Somebody we all know," she said, turning to me. "A big red wolf, really big, with fur sticking out like wire." I tried to stay calm. "Does Fenrir breathe fire?" Sydney scanned the page and nodded slowly. "It's kind of his trademark." John's face drained of color until it matched hers. "So we're living in a weird fat book?" My heart was doing a drum solo. 100 eyes, a red wolf, a trip to the underworld? Was something mythological happening with Dana? No, it was too unbelievable. We read as much as we could, digging further into the Norse myths, but the bus got back to school. We climbed off just as the bell rang. "Third period," said John. "Time for lunch." I can't think on an empty stomach. Besides, macaroni special today. My brain is macaroni, I said, but yeah, come on. We entered the halls following the last of the lunch crowd. "Mythology or not, book or not," said Sydney, leaning close, "we can't keep this a secret anymore. We have to tell someone about Dana. I should call the police or something." She told Owen not to tell, John pointed out. "Even if we went to the police, what would they say?" I asked. "Someone vanishing, red wolves breathing fire, lots of creepy eyes, old books? No one is going to believe a single word." By the time we got to the cafeteria, the tables were crammed with, and the room was roaring with conversation. The lunch line was empty, so John quickly slid 3 trays onto the counter and pushed them ahead of us. The lunch ladies were standing behind the counter. "Macaroni special, please," John said. "Times 3." Miss Hilda, the roundest lady, gave us a big smile. "Special, special, and special," she said, pointing to each of us. But before ladling out any food, one of the others, Miss Lillian, stepped out from behind the counter and closed the lunch line door behind Sydney. The third lady, Miss Marge, a tiny woman with a snowdrift of white hair tucked under her hairnet, closed the accordion gate between the loud cafeteria and the quiet kitchen. Sydney started. "What's going on?" The kitchen lights flickered overhead, then went out. Torches magically appeared on the walls, sputtering with blue flames. We stepped back in shock as Hilda, Lillian, and Marge lined up together in front of us. One held a giant spatula, another long soup ladle, and the third a great pair of kitchen tongs. "What exactly is happening?" John whispered shakily. The lunch ladies took one step toward us, stared deep into our eyes, and cried out a single word. "Hoyo toho!" And then they began to morph.